Hi, Anita. Welcome again.
Thank you.
So today we are talking about partners. Love. They say love is blind, but after a few months or even days, do they kind of open their eyes up? What happens?
I think a lot of scientists have agreed that there's a lot of chemicals going on in your brain for the first few months when you first started dating and you feel attracted to somebody, and all you can see are the things that you've got in common, and everything's just easy. And most people speak most of the love languages really easily and quite fluently in the beginning, and it's kind of like a kind of like it's like you're on a high, but then it calms down, and then everyday life happens, and you might have kids or bills or moving in together, asking about housework, and then something changes. And some people would call it going from being in love to having love as a different perspective.
So what is the difference of being in love and having love?
I think you could say being in love is all the falling in love, all the chemistry, all the when it's all clouds and it's all pink and blurry, and you don't see reality in the same way. And I think having love or being loving is the long-term thing, and it's got more to do with choice and commitment more than feelings and chemicals.
Hmm. Staying in love needs a lot of work, does it?
There are some things that make it easier. I think if you happen to have the same kind of love languages, if you both like like words of affirmation, if you both got that as your love language, I think it's kind of easier if you got different love languages. So if your partner has got gifts but you've got acts of service, you might have to learn about finding considerate gifts. So it depends. It doesn't have to be hard, but it takes something.
So you talk about the love languages. So let's break it down to each of the five love languages and see how you can talk in the different love languages, shall we? So if somebody has their primary love language as words of affirmation, how do you show love?
In words of affirmation, I think people with that as their main language, they really like hearing the words "I love you" from the partner. And I also think it's important that they can say why they find that person special. What is it that's special about me? They want to hear that often, and they want to have particular praise about something you appreciate about them, whether it's about their personality or if they got a new hairstyle or if they got a good sense of humor, whatever it is, they really need to hear it quite often. And research has shown that if you get a good compliment either from your boss or from your spouse, the good chemicals and the good feelings you get, they last for about a week. So I think you need to fill up the love tank at least that often. It can be done in all sorts of ways. You could send nice messages, you can send nice cards, and there's loads of dialects within that language, and you can say positive things about your partner in front of others. That's very effective as well to some people.
Oh, so you say there's language and there are dialects.
Yeah, so we could having both. We could both have words of affirmation as our main language and our primary love language, but we could like to have it spoken in different ways. So I might like loads of praise in front of loads of people, whereas somebody would find that embarrassing and they'd rather have a friendly text message or a note in their lunchbox or something like that.
Interesting. Okay, so what about for people who have acts of service as their primary love language?
What could be some examples of acts of service? I think my partner, I think he quite likes it when I pack his bags, because he's not that great at putting clothes together. So if he goes off for a conference for a few days, I think he quite likes it when I put them all together in the right order. So he's got sets of clothes to wear. It could be emptying the dishwasher, it could be folding the clothes, but then those are normal things for it, you know, it's just basic everyday things. So I think if you want to fill up your partner's love tank by doing acts of service, it should be something a bit out of the ordinary. So it should be something that's planned, and you should do it in a happy mood, and you should do it the way that person wants it done. So look, at the moment, I'm doing up this old wooden chair, and I'm doing the scrubbing and the painting, and I'm doing it exactly how he wants it done. And it's taken a long time. It's been taking more than a week. But I had to remind myself that I'm filling up his life by doing it. If I had to do it my way, it would have been done within a day, but it wouldn't have been done properly, just quickly. So that's just one example. There's loads of examples. Bringing kids to school, or taking the baby out if you're tired. You know, the list is endless. You could do all sorts of things. Some people like to have meals cooked for them, or their partner mowing the lawn or painting the fence. It could be all sorts.
And next would be quality time.
Yeah, quality time. There are loads of different dialects within that as well, but I think for you to learn to speak that well, it's very important that you ask the person to do something they want to do, and you invite them to do something. And again, you do it in a good mood, and you show an interest in what they're into, and by asking questions. And then I tell the students when I teach this at school, you do active listening. That means listening with both ears, and without coming up with suggestions, without interrupting, and really doing some active listening, like really being there with that person without distractions. So there's no Facebook, no phone, no other things going on, and just being with the person, doing whatever he or she wants to do. That's quality time. But within that, I mean, some people like biking together, whereas other people would find that horrible, and they want to just sit and talk. Or it could be having a meal out, it could be going fishing, it could be anything that you like to do, going for a walk, listening to music, all sorts.
So you say we have to practice active listening, but since two people who have come together, it's difficult to not give suggestions.
It is, and you feel like you know the other person, and I think when you catch yourself thinking that you know what the person's going to say next, you're not really doing active listening. You're kind of thinking, oh, what shall I say next? Or is he almost done? Or are we finished soon? Or oh, I bet he's going to say that again. And then you're not really listening. And I think you'd be surprised if you've been going out for like 20 years or 30 years or 10 years, that you might be surprised that if you really listen for gold, you might hear something new. And I think it could be quite surprising what might happen to the other person if you really start listening actively.
Interesting. And now the one the language that's more natural to partners, right? Physical touch, more to it.
Well, you can sit close to each other. I mean, it's natural in the beginning, especially when they got that in love hormone. Most people they can't keep their hands off each other, and they do that a lot. And they touch the skin and the hair, and it's really special like that. But I think to do some of those things again after a while, it could be a good start, like touching the hair like you used to, or just being close to each other. So when you walk past each other in the kitchen, for somebody who's got physical touch as their love language, they really appreciate you kissing their neck, or just touching their shoulder, or stroking the arm. Small things like that really make a difference. And I think giving each other a kiss or a hug before leaving the house, or once they come home, or even being close together when you go to bed, things like that, holding hands while you're out for a walk, those sort of things I think really matter.
And the last is gifts.
Yeah.
So when I think of gifts, the expensive quality, the branded gifts or branded products, is that what we're talking about here?
Well, people selling expensive stuff want you to think of that as being showing love, but really that's just people selling expensive jewelry or expensive cars or something like that. They want you to believe that that's the way to show love, but it could be really inexpensive things, it could be free things. It's really about the thought behind the gift, and it's that it's something physical that the partner can hold, and it reminds them that you've been thinking about them. So it could be free, it could be that the favorite color is green and you find a really beautiful green stone on the beach, or it could be that you make them their favorite dessert, or you could make them a cup of tea, but just exactly the way they like it. And it could be that you're making something, like you're knitting something or painting something. It doesn't really have to be expensive at all, but it's a thought. You could bring in flowers that they like from the garden. It doesn't really have to be a cost at all.
So the gift has to be something that they like, and not something that you think that they like. Is there a difference?
You could be a bit of a detective and trying to figure out what they like, because then it's a surprise for them as well. But if you know their hobby, it could be a magazine or a book on that subject, or you can just really think about it and make an effort about it. That's going to make a difference, and it's going to make the gift be personal. So whether it's expensive or not, if it's a piece of jewelry, they know that you thought about them and that you made the effort to go and choose something you think they like, and I think that's important. Much more important than the price.
Okay. So now that we have talked about the 5 love languages, we can talk about some of the practical questions that I think usually there's like spouses or partners, usually they seem to be, before they say, the opposites attract. And then when they come together, the opposites don't really work together, like, right? So one is organized and other is a little messy. So what happens when one is very organized? And let's say a typical, everybody will have this, shoes. One wants the shoes to be neatly organized, and the other doesn't care, comes in, takes off the shoes, and walks off to the living room. And the other one, the other partner is upset. What do you do? How do you show appreciation in these? Is it giving up their behavior?
Well, you can choose whether it's worth being right or whether you should be in relationship and have that relationship be as intimate as possible. That's really a choice. You can choose between being right and making the other person wrong for that opinion, but really it's just an opinion. So whether you're the person who gets upset or whether you are the other person who feels uncomfortable about the person being upset about the shoes being in the wrong place, then it's up to you whether you want to interpret it as something personal, but really it isn't. It's their stuff. If they want to be upset about it, then that's their choice. But you again can choose to put the shoes in order. If your partner has got acts of service as their love language, then that could be a way of showing love and give up being right about them being messy. So that's a possibility. But in that case, I think it's important you don't make it mean anything about yourself, because really it's not that personal. And you don't have to be reactivated even though he's upset about it.
So the spouse who is upset about the shoes not being in the right order, so the power is with you whether or not for you to be upset about it.
You can choose whether you want to be upset about it or not. And you can also choose to see that if you think he or she, the tidy one, is overreacting, you can choose to see that as a low love tank rather than being bad or wrong. So you can just think, okay, how can I fill up their love tank? Because I think it's easier for them not to be really upset about the shoes being in the wrong place if their love tank is full. At least that's my experience, that we become a lot wiser and a lot less irrational, and we don't overreact as much if we got a full love tank. They might still want to have all the shoes in the right place, but they might just tidy them up themselves, and that would be the end of it.
So it's more about the love tank being empty or full rather than actually the shoes.
I think so. I think the shoes is just, and if they react badly to that, I think that's just an expression and a part of us that's like the worst version of ourselves, and we get that when our love tanks are empty. I mean, I might not overreact with the shoes being in the wrong place, because that doesn't add any meaning to me. That's not important to me. But I could overreact about, you know, my family not saying thank you for the meal that I cooked, and for somebody who's not noticing that I got a nice new dress, or, you know, it could be something else that I'm overreacting on. And I might not be, oh, no, the shoes are in the wrong place. I might just be quiet and sad and a bit sort of negative with the sarcastic comments. So we all got our versions of ourselves that are not very good when we have a love tank that's getting empty.
Okay. And in relationships, you usually see the highs and the lows, right? When you're in the lows, and people want to get out of that, what if, I mean, I think it would be awesome if two people work at it together, right?
Sure.
Could one of the partner choose to start appreciating and see the effort, see something happen?
Sure. As long as you know your partner well enough to try and sort of guess what their love language is, you can start filling up that love tank straight away. And you can be committed to that partner, whether the partner wants to be a part of the appreciation language or the love language journey. I think if you start filling up their love tank, you'll be surprised what happens. I think they'd be more than positive after a while of you filling up their love tank, whether they know that that's what you're doing or not. And you can always share about it. And I think they'd be more willing to listen and hear about the 5 love languages if their love tank is full up.
So what do you think the partner should do when both of them think that their love tank is empty?
I think, again, it's not about being right, about, who's got the lowest love tank. I think it's about being your word and your commitment to that partner and to love them, better or worse, you know, even when you don't feel like it. I think it's an action, and I think it takes some effort, and it takes some willingness to give up being right and fill up the love tank, whatever you might feel like. It's hard when your love tank is empty, but I think being a mature adult, you can you can choose, and you can still honor that commitment that you got to your partner. But it's hard on the low love tank. But there are ways that you can fill up your own love tank as well. And I think once you understand these love languages, it's not something that you should just get from your partner. If he's struggling or if she's struggling, it might not be easy to get it from there. You could, I mean, if you got, let's say, words of affirmation is your main love language, you can actually ask your friend to say something positive, and you can write things that you're proud of by yourself. I write things every day that I'm proud of, that I've achieved, and something that I like about myself. And so it's like I'm writing things down that I appreciate about me and about other people. And I think you can do it in so many ways. And like quality time, maybe that's your language. You can make sure that you get quality time and be responsible for your own self-care. So quality time without my partner could be having a bath and eating chocolate, or it could be going for a walk or being with a friend. There's loads of ways of filling up the love tank. And I think part of being an adult is taking responsibility for that yourself.
That is a very important point that you made, that love tank is something that does not need to be filled by your partner.
I think if you're depending on your partner to fill up your love tank constantly, it can become a bit fragile. And I think you really need to, I think you're in much better shape of filling up your partner's love tank or other people's love tank and show appreciation in so many ways if you're really taking care of yourself first. So I believe in that completely.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, I feel that too. So what advice would you give to partners that are starting their life together?
Well, I would definitely say read the 5 love languages and read it in the beginning, so you know what to think of when the sort of chemistry is sort of going down a little bit, to get that intimacy back and to get those feelings back, and for it not to sort of stick. I think it's better to know your partner's love language in the beginning rather than later on, and they might be on their low love tank and be upset and be disappointed, and they might not want to hear about it. They might not want to know about your love language, and then it's kind of late. So I think it's a good thing to be like that beforehand, when you're all positive and want to hear about the other person, and spend that time reading the book together or talking about the subject and finding out about the dialects. And in the beginning, you're really interested in what the other person is saying and you want to know all about that person, so then talk about it in that phase. And also, I've got some advice about making sure that you have got time together. So let's say you do like a date night every Wednesday or every Tuesday, where you don't need to do that in the beginning because you want to spend time together all the time anyway. But to make it like a routine, to make sure that you keep the romance alive when you've got kids and bills and housework and all those sort of things that can distract you. I think to get into a good habit in the beginning is quite a good idea. And also, I read some research showing that if you share some of the chores at home and you share responsibility for kids, the divorce rate go down. So I think to get into a habit where you don't take the other person for granted and that you're actually sharing some of the responsibilities, both financial and the house responsibilities, I think that's a good idea to start off like that.
That's great advice. So any parting words before next time we talk about the words of love languages of appreciation for teens?
I've got 3 things that I'd like to point out. And one is being generous with yourself and your self-care and loving yourself first. and then being generous and loving other people and being generous with your interpretation. So check out what is happening and what do you make it mean, and realize that that's up to you to catch yourself making up stories that's most likely based on your own childhood or something that happened in your previous relationship. It's probably nothing to do with the situation here and now. And I think to give up being right even when you are.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Anita, and I'll speak to you soon again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.